The royal lineage in Genesis. Another topic in our course on Pentateuch, from paradise to the promised land. The book of Genesis includes many genealogies, and they usually begin with the word toledot, which means account. This word functions like a chapter or section headings in modern books. It also focuses our attention on a particular individual and his immediate family. Another important word for us to remember is zera, seed, which also means descendants or offspring. The word, depending on the context, can be either singular or plural, and it normally denotes an individual's natural child or children. If you look at this family tree of Adam and Eve, you notice that they had three kids, Cain, Abel, and Seth. And then the descendants of Cain go all the way to the flood, and then they disappeared. Abel couldn't produce offsprings because he was murdered by his brother Cain. And then the descendants of Seth, the third son, the youngest one, go beyond the flood. And look at here from Noah, who is one among those descendants of Seth, we have the line of Shem that goes all the way to Terah, the father of Abraham. And from Abraham, the line goes all the way to Jacob and the 12 patriarchs. The lineage of Adam. The lineage is always traced through male descendants, and all are clearly named. In number of instances, a younger son is given priority over an older brother, and there is a reason given for that. For example, for killing his brother Abel, Cain, the firstborn, is passed over in favor of Seth, the thirdborn. Ishmael is Abraham's firstborn, but he is excluded because he is the son of Sarah's Egyptian maidservant. His mother is Hagar. Esau, although he is the firstborn of Isaac, sells his birthright to Jacob, his younger brother, and displeases his parents by wrong marriage choices. The same goes for the 12 sons of Jacob. Judah is the fourth born son of Jacob and Leah, and Joseph is the firstborn son of Rachel and Jacob, but he is the 11th son in all the sons of Jacob. Yet both of them are privileged before the others. Why? Actually, Reuben is the firstborn, Simeon is the second, and Levi is the third, and only after them is Judah. But the three of them disqualified themselves by their actions. You can check that in Genesis 35 and 34. Joseph was the firstborn of Rachel, the beloved wife of Jacob, and according to Chronicles, he got the birthright. Then when Jacob blesses Joseph's two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, he places the younger over the older. Finally, in Genesis 38, within the story of Joseph, we have a short passage regarding Judah and his lineage. The reason for inclusion of this story will be explained in Genesis 49. As the story continues in the Bible, Judah replaces Joseph and Benjamin. Let's look at this. The first leader of Israel after Moses was Joshua, who led the people into the promised land, and he came from the line of Ephraim. Remember, Ephraim is one of those sons of Joseph, blessed by Jacob, and included in the tribes of Israel. The first king comes from the tribe of Benjamin, Saul. But finally, both lines were replaced by Judah. The second king after Saul is David, who comes from the line of Judah. The central family line exists due to the gracious activity of God. So all those women mentioned here in those passages in Genesis, Eve, Sarah, Rebecca, and Rachel, they are grateful to God for their children. Eve is grateful for the third son, Seth. Sarah, Rebecca, and Rachel were childless, and it is simply by the intervention of God that they were able to bear children. Another thing that is worth noticing is a special relationship between God and individual members of the main family line. Enoch, Noah, and Abraham, all three of them, somehow they pleased God. Were they perfect? No, of course not. In the Bible, only God is perfect. So Noah, Abraham, and Jacob, all of them, they had own shortcomings. For example, Noah is the first one who planted the vineyard, drank the wine, and got drunk. Abraham is asking his wife to pretend that she is his sister. Jacob, of course, he lied to his father. Were they better than the others in their generations? That is what we are told about Noah, that he is righteous in his generation. And Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all of them worship the true God. But there is also a connection between the story of the father and the son. For example, Cain and Lamech, both of them talk about vengeance. Abraham and Isaac, both of them tried to say that their wives are their sisters. Jacob lied to his father. Later on, his children will lie to him. And yet, it is from this line that kings will come. Abraham and Sarah both receive that kind of promise. Kings will come from you, or kings of peoples will come from Sarah. Abraham, already in his generation, is considered to be a prince of God. And when Isaac is blessing Jacob, his younger son, he says that many nations will serve him. Finally, when Jacob blesses all his sons, when he comes to Judah, he says that it is from Judah that the royal line of David shall come. Divine promises, then, related to seeds can be summarized like this. In Genesis 3:15, we already heard that few times. The seed of the woman shall overcome the serpent. Second, God promises the land of Canaan to the seed of Abraham. And third, finally, the seed of Abraham shall be numerous. How does it relate to New Testament? I think by now you realize how important are genealogies in the Gospel of Matthew and Luke. It is interesting to notice that genealogy of Matthew goes from Abraham through David to Jesus. But in Luke, we have the line traced all the way from Jesus to Adam. Why is that so? Matthew writes for his community that is composed of Jewish Christians. But Luke writes to communities they are mostly composed of Gentiles. Abraham is the father of the Jewish nation, but Adam is the father of all humanity. This special line of seed finds its fulfillment in Jesus. It is worth noticing Paul's interpretation of Genesis 12:7. There we read in Genesis 12:7, "The Lord appeared to Abraham and said, 'To your offspring I will give this land.'" From the context, we immediately think about many people, the whole tribe of Israel. But Paul in Galatians 3:16 refers that seed to Christ and takes it as a singular. But although Jesus comes from the royal line of Abraham and David, the Bible states that he is greater than Abraham, greater than David, and greater than Solomon. One more thing needs to be said: physical descent versus spiritual one. Paul in Romans 9:8 and Galatians 4:28 makes a distinction between children by physical descent and children of the promise. For example, Ishmael and Isaac, both of them are sons of Abraham. Ishmael is the elder one, Isaac is the younger one. But Ishmael, according to Paul, is a son of physical descent, born of a slave, Hagar, Egyptian slave. Isaac, on the other hand, is a child of a promise, because God promised Abraham that Sarah will have a child. How about Esau and Jacob? Both of them were the sons of Isaac. Here, Paul stressed God's election. Even before children did anything good or bad, Jacob was chosen and not Esau. Thus, natural descent from Abraham is no guarantee of salvation. The seed of Abraham should resemble him in his faith or trust in God. The true children of Abraham are those who, like Abraham, exercise faith.